Αγαπητοί φίλοι της κιθάρας και του κιθαρολόγιου, χαίρετε. Μία πολύ σημαντική στιγμή για το διαδικτυακό μας κανάλι. Απόψε κοντά μας η φίλη διεθνούς φήμης σολίστ Έλενα Παπανδρέου. Έλενα, καλώς ήλθες.
Καλώς σας βρήκα και πάλι.
Η μεγάλη στιγμή για το κανάλι, ο σπουδαίος, ο μεγάλος Όσκαρ Ghiglia κοντά μας. Μαέστρο Benvenuti.
Καλώς σας βρήκα.
Μαέστρο, γνωρίζω ότι προέρχεσαι από μια καλλιτεχνική οικογένεια. Θέλεις να μας πεις κάποια λόγια γι' αυτό?
He knows that you're coming from an artistic family. Would you like to say a few words about that?
I should say?
Yes, about your family, artistic family.
Okay. After the war, we went to Rome, and my father worked as a painter with the famous people from Rome, the artists, the nobles and the priests and everybody. And he came home and he brought home food for us because we were starving. My mother went out shopping and asking everybody to please sign it up on a book, and then we will pay at the end of the month. And one day at the end of the month, all the shopkeepers came in a line together, all outside the door. I don't know how, because they had spoken to each other and they had found out that we might never pay. And so, fortunately, my father had just been paid, and so we covered them with money, and they all left very happy. And we ate in peace what we had. My father painted in the house also, and my mother played piano. Fantastic. She was a great pianist. And she played for us during the war when the airplanes came and dropped bombs in the neighborhood. She sat at the piano, and we sang along Schubert's Lieder with her until the sound of the came too close, and then we all went out and went down to the shelter. Unfortunately, we found the house still on. Rome was città aperta, was left by the Nazis and the Americans. They were not going to bomb it, at least not the center. But where we were close to the peripheral parts, so we were entitled to have some bombs here and there. And my mother once went to look for water at a fountain a few 100 meters away, and before she got there, she heard the voice of her mother inside her head. She believed in spiritualism, and so she said, "Juliana, torna indietro, go back home." And so she turned around and she forgot about the water. And the next day, they picked pieces of women from the trees because the bomb had hit the fountain and all the ladies that were fetching water. So we were very lucky in that atmosphere. And even though sometimes there was no light, once I got so sick that I was going to die the next morning. But I had diphtheria, a very strong disease. And the doctor says, "No, don't worry, just a little throat ache, it'll go away tomorrow." But my mother didn't believe it. And although there was a curfew that stopped everybody from going out after 7 p.m., she went and found the doctor, a specialist, and brought him back, and he gave me shots of whatever they had at the time, sulfonates, and I was saved. Otherwise, I wouldn't be here now. I decided to study guitar, and my father was a very good friend of Alfredo del Pelo, who was a famous singer and guitarist who was a friend of everybody, all the artists, and he sang and played in the courts of all of Europe, and people would cry listening to his songs. And so my father painted a portrait of him, and he, in exchange, taught me how to play the guitar. He said, take my guitar. I take one of his Paralupi, and he said, I can't teach. You just steal from what I'm doing. And so he did thing, and I stole it. And then I went home and wrote everything on a piece of music paper with the words, etc. And because I had taught myself how to write and how to read music. And so this went on until in 1954, the Conservatorio of Santa Cecilia opened a guitar class. Incredible. There was no guitar school in the conservatories of Europe. Only Madrid had a guitar. The rest, forget it. And so I went. I was one of the 19 students enrolled. I had an electric guitar with Fs, with the buttons to turn it louder, and almost like the one you have there. And I played because it had steel strings, of course, but in a while I learned how to use nylon strings and all that. And the teacher was a friend of Jobet, and he taught me very nice things, and we went through all the possible literature for guitar schools. Everything that was available, we read one after the other. We learned to play, to read, to sight read, and to change tonality, to move, to modulate a piece, read it in D, written in D, we would play it in B major. And so we knew how to do all those proceedings. And my theory teacher was a priest, a very good guy who played and loved the guitar. He played a prelude by Debussy, La Cathédrale Engloutie. And he says, see, Debussy was thinking of the guitar, because when he wrote this piece, he played all the open strings of the guitar. Bum, 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 and he was very much inspiring. But then he left. He went to direct a conservatory in Pescara. And we had another one. We were supposed to do our last year of solfège, third year. There were 3 years. And the new teacher came, a woman, a very strong, sturdy woman. And she said, okay, so you guys are supposed to be on the 3rd year. Huh? Let's see, take my method. Etude exercise number 1. Everyone had to read it. And then she said, well, you're all back to the 1st year. We have to start all over again. You guys don't know anything. Because we were used to hearing my solfège teacher, who was a priest, and he played piano all the time. It was very inspiring. But then we sang following him playing, and we weren't able to read ourselves. So, excuse me. Oops, never mind. And so the conservatory went well. before the end of the conservatory, I went to Paris and won the competition. Number one. I was number one at the competition of the Radio France, and there was no second prize. And one of the judges was Maurice Ohana, the great composer. He said, I am sure, because we were playing behind a screen and they didn't tell our names, we just played. All they heard was performing. I am sure that this guy, I was playing the homage to Debussy by the Falla, and I said, I am sure that he is a Spanish guitarist. And you know, can imagine, very Spanish. I had never been to Spain or anything. Anyway, that was a great moment, and I loved Paris, and I decided to move there. So from that year, 1963, I stayed in Paris. I just went back to Rome to do the diploma, and went there and did my diploma and got not even a good voice, a good mark, because the teacher who was the special from outside, you know, that one who decides what mark you get, he was not my friend. And I was not his friend. I don't know how. We ended up being very animistic. But I didn't know him, he didn't know me. And so he gave me 9.45. So you cannot, you know, if it were 9.50, the director of the conservatorio would have been, well, that makes 10, which was the highest.
Yes.
But 9.45, you're stuck. And so, you know, there we
Mafia behavior.
are. Mafia behavior. Mafia behavior.
Italian mafia, not only Greek mafia.
I won't tell you his name, but because I don't want to pronounce it. Anyway, then I went to Paris and stayed there and played and did my first recordings. And from there, the first vinyl recordings, and then from there I went around the world. My first around the world tour. I went to California, to Japan, to Taiwan, to Hong Kong. I remember that in Hong Kong, I decided to buy some pearls to bring to a friend from Paris, who was the daughter of the great painter, and I was staying at his house. And so I said, can I buy some? And the guy said, yes, okay. These are from this kind and this kind and this kind. And they're all very different. Some big round pearls, you know, very tall, and some smaller, and then some tiny, you could hardly see them, but very, very bright. And I thought, oh, how much are the big ones? Oh, those are cheap. What are the ones that are the best? The little ones. The little ones. And they were very expensive. So I bought 2 or 3 of the little ones. And as I was looking at them and shining in my eyes, I remembered Segovia in one of my first lessons that I had, where I played pieces by Chilesotti, made with chords, and I was practicing the whole year. I had been practicing to get that big sound that my teacher wanted, and a big, nice, big, round sound like an orchestra. And Segovia, when he heard me play, he turned around to Alirio Diaz, who was next to him. He says, Alirio, how come these young people choose such terrible tone to play? I say, terrible. I worked a whole year to get that sound. And then he took the guitar and he played crack, crack, crack. You know, tiny sounds that I'm still appreciating today, because with that, he has a whole orchestra. When he wants, he turns the sound round and sharp and or very sweet or very harsh. But the little sound was what he used. And remember those little pearls. That's why they're so expensive, because they are really good. And so from there, then when you hear the violin, you hear gee, 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 and then eventually it goes wah, wah, but usually the real sound is very tiny.
You know, if I may interrupt, Oscar, when somebody has only a big round sound and no other sound, he calls it Nutella, which for us is merenda sound. So imagine merenda with fuduki and
Nutella.
so it's a very nice example, and I tell my students sometimes, oh, you don't have to have only one sound, the merenda sound, Nutella,
The
in
Nutella
Italy.
sound. Yes. By the way, you have here a painting of myself studying on my Ramirez guitar, and a music stand that I made myself with hammer and nails and cutting wood, because I didn't have any. We were in the mountains.
So, Oscar,
Yes.
tell us about these great personalities of the world of guitar, Andres Segovia and Alirio Diaz. Tell us some things, please.
Excuse me, but before
It's okay.
yeah. So they were, Segovia had all the possible effects on his students, but not all. Only those who liked his playing and his style would get something. Many thought they already at that time, they thought they had a better idea. And so they usually didn't stay long. They stayed 2 days and then they left by themselves. And we were only the ones that were present, and we were about 30 students in the hall in the guitar class.
In Siena?
In Siena. Alirio Diaz taught in the morning, and Segovia in the afternoon. So sometimes I played in the morning, and Alirio said, very well, very well, very well, you're beginning to go. And then in the evening, Segovia said, no. They were not always very much in agreement with each other. But of course, Alirio was another great teacher. And I learned a lot from him. And still today, when I hear his recording, I am very surprised by his beautiful performances. He did not start with the guitar. He was playing different instruments, and then he finally took the guitar, and then he went to Spain and he started with Sons de la Masa, and then he came to study with Segovia. Segovia, on the other hand, had been all his life growing his opinion about the guitar and about the greatness of the guitar. And if he did not really have any example in front of him. Of course, he met Tarrega, he met Jobet, but he didn't sound like any of them. He went and he developed his love for music in a way that is typically his. You cannot decide where it stops and where it ends. Once I asked him, Maestro, how do I do? I want to learn these sonata number 3. What shall I do? And she said, practice rhythmically. Practice rhythmically. And when you find a moment that means something in particular, bring it up with all your might. And then he said to the students, when he told them to stop playing in tempo and hold certain notes, and he did that. And people were not so sure, they prefer, to be safely playing every note as it's written. And he said, when you are in the street and you see a beautiful woman pass by, don't you stop and look at her? And of course, for him, it was a very good example. Of course, if you see a beautiful woman, turn around, you're just like that. And so when you hear something in the music that is especially good, especially beautiful, you also grow. And that grows into you and makes you become appreciative of some particular moments. Julian Bream said the same thing. And he always played straightly in tempo, so much that I never liked that particular trait of his. But when he found something that he loved, he took all his time. And that was the same as Segovia was saying. John Williams had a different way of performing. For him, everything had to be perfect. And it was perfect. There was nothing you could say about his playing. Segovia never said anything about his playing. One day he he was what was I saying? Remember that story? No. Oh yes, he was playing the chaconne. And usually when he played the chaconne or any other Bach piece, he was straightforward, and people would just wait in patience. And then he was in Chicago, and he became more and more involved musically, and everybody thought, what's the matter? That's not the John we know. That's not the John we know. Everything was so lovely and singing, and then all of a sudden, bang, he forgot. So he hit his head and says, what's going on? He could not understand that his playing had gone beyond his guard that kept him playing perfectly, Segovia did the same once in San Francisco, where he came and played the next day, and he was playing the Sonata Romantica, and he did a beautiful job. When he got to the slow movement, it was so expressive, and I was sitting at the top of the rows, and I thought, that's too beautiful. I'm sure that he will forget. And he did forget. He had forgotten totally. So he came back, and then he played. Then I went to say hello, and I said, Maestro, I love that sonata. You did it beautifully. You did it so beautifully. And he was angry. And he says, the guitar is worse than a woman. You can never trust her.
This in 2022 brings you to court. Be
But
careful.
this was in
Be careful.
1984.
Okay, that time.
1984.
Let him speak as an artist.
Listen, when then I left, and I was surprised that Segovia had such reaction. And I went around the world, and then I ended up again in the States and went to New York. In New York, I was in Rose Augustine's studio, and she was always on the phone talking to somebody. And I was waiting and roaming around in the studio, and I saw a guitar on the wall. I went, it was open, the guitar case, and inside there was a Ramirez with a hole in the middle. So I said to Rose, Segovia. Mm-hmm. She said, he had punched it to death. But of course, the guitar was remodeled and figured and arranged and everything. And he never did it again to any other instrument. It was a beautiful Ramirez, you know.
With two holes.
With two holes.
Θα απέκτησε μεγαλύτερη αξία τώρα τότε.
Maybe it got a bigger value after that.
Yeah. Everybody started punching their guitars and sell them as Segovia's instruments, you know, the bang, the crack. And the price went up. Oh, gosh.
Μαέστρο, βρέθηκες κοντά με την τεχνική της κιθάρας όλου του 20ου αιώνα, εάν υποθέσουμε ότι ο Ανδρέας Σεγκόβια έφερε αυτή την τεχνική. Βλέπουμε στις μέρες μας ότι η τεχνική, ειδικά στο δεξί χέρι, έχει αλλάξει ως προς τη θέση και ως προς κάποιες φορές την κρούση των χορδών. Πώς το αντιμετωπίζεις αυτό?
He says that you encountered all possible different varieties of technique in the 20th century and not only. And today the technique on the guitar, especially the right hand, has quite a lot changed in the decades before, and the position is usually different, and also the way that somebody plucks the strings. So how do you comment that? How do you...
Everyone follows his way, you know. I don't ask around, how did you do that? I like it, and I appreciate whatever. My way was not what Segovia taught me, but I learned by myself by using the weight of my hands, my fingers, my arms, my body, and to transfer it onto the strings. So the power came perhaps from the piano. The pianos, when they play, they go like this, and they move their weight as the hand reaches the high frets, the high keys, they go with it, because they have to provide weight, support. So that is also, I had a good friend from pianist from Sweden who said that he was using weight all the time. And so little by little, that became my rule. And Elena knows something about it, because...
Oh yeah, especially my left hand, I have totally reconsidered it watching Oscar's left hand. His right hand is very particular indeed.
My right hand is more, I never kept the hand still like most guitarists today, and they move just the fingers, because I think it's no piano do that, no cellist do that, no conductor does that. There's always motion, and so the motion must help the performance, not hinder it, not make it impossible. And today's techniques are very based on control, and but I don't know really where they base their control, whether it is from here from there. There was this American guitar teacher who taught a new technique, and he was against Segovia, and he used only the fingers and no arms and everything. What was his name? Do you remember? No.
Aaron Scherer.
Aaron Scherer, yes, Aaron Scherer. He developed a new technique that was the same that Barrueco teaches, and that is based on quiet motion, you know, very little motion, and that's very good. But
Not yours.
not mine,
Yeah.
not mine, no. So, you know, it has a galateo. Everything has a way, it has good manners. Like when you eat, you have to use good manners. But important is what you do when you put it in your mouth, to see how good it is, to taste it. And that is more important than anything. And the taste of the sound is based on the intervals. And the intervals are made of tones and half tones, and within periods of 4 notes, which are called tetrachords, modes. And the mode is within a fourth, and it seems that for me, a fourth is a strictly exact distance that you can visualize, that you can appreciate without without losing the quality of it. So everything in every piece that I play, I find the modes. I reconstruct them. They're made of 4 notes. These 4 notes can be scattered, but I put them back together, and then I hear the piece as it's written, and I hear the flavor of the modes. And so I try to teach this to my students, and it helps a lot. And I also wrote some articles about the modes, and and that's it. This is the way: weight, modes, hearing, and imagination. Lots of imagination. And try to figure out what the meaning behind a melody could be. It's a language. Music is a language. The language that speaks to everyone through the emotions. So everything has to raise emotion. And the emotion.
Για να μεταφράσει κάποιος αυτήν τη γλώσσα που περιγράφεις, δεν πρέπει να υπάρχει και μια υποδομή, μια κουλτούρα από διαφορετικούς χώρους και όχι μόνο από τη μουσική?
In order to interpret, for somebody to interpret this language that you say, doesn't he have also to have a certain culture from different fields and not only from music?
Well, that helps to have that. You said something important. That helps because it's creativity, and creativity is in paintings, in sculptures, you know, and in writing, in thinking, and of course in playing. But it has to be always alive. It has to show examples of life, has to be related to life. So in the music of the Baroque, for instance, of Bach, or the Middle Ages, or any music, the sound of the notes provides the same feelings that it did at that time. And today, you feel the same way as Pythagoras, and as anyone who started the idea of interpretation. and you go on and try to reach always a direct line with your emotions. But anyway, you know, what can I say? It's everyone follows different ways. There are so many other things, but there are all those structure, melodic structure, harmonic structure, dynamic structure, stylistic structure. All those structures have to be together. Like in a landscape, you see the mountains there, you see the plain, you see the trees, see the animals, the birds, the sky, the sun, everything are part of the picture. And each one represents an emotion to anyone. So everything has to be there. You cannot say that I only play according to the mountain range, or only the flat, or only the birds. Everything that moves is part of what you see of life. And when you hear in the music, you can hear, you don't see birds fly, but you have the emotion of an image of sorts, inner image that makes sense to you. Not easy.
Maestro, thank you very much. Εδώ φίλοι του Κιθαρολογίου, απολαμβάνοντας τον υπέροχο, τον σπουδαίο Όσκαρ Ghiglia και την Έλενα Παπανδρέου, θα σταματήσουμε, θα τελειώσουμε το πρώτο μέρος αυτής της συζήτησης. Θα υπάρξει πολύ σύντομα και δεύτερο μέρος και ελπίζω να είστε όλοι σας, όπως εγώ, γοητευμένοι από τον υπέροχο μαέστρο Όσκαρ Ghiglia. Καλή αντάμωση στο δεύτερο μέρος της συζήτησης.
Thank you very much. It was